Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our next Abundance Digital webinar. It's a real pleasure to jump into a subject that I think is near and dear to all of our hearts, which is once you've got your idea, once you understand your massively transformative purpose, which we spend so much time on, and you've got your moonshot and you want to get a venture going to make a difference in the world, what do you do? How do you go from from what to how? And to share this conversation with me and to lead this conversation, I'm super proud to bring into this webinar a friend, an Abundance Digital member, an Abundance 360 member, George Bandarian. So George, welcome, first of all.
Thank you, Peter. Delighted to be here. It's an honor. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Thank you, pal. So let me take a second to introduce everybody to George, and you'll understand why I've asked him to have this conversation with me for your benefit and to give you some guidance about how do you take that idea in the back of your mind that you've been inkling and you're, you're excited about this. Pandemic is giving you plenty of time to think, and now you want to take action. And how do you take action? So George Bandarian is the founder and managing director of Untapped Ventures. It's a $10 million pre-seed studio fund, right? So we can talk about in a moment, George, the stages of funding and the stages of incubation, but it's a pre-seed studio fund based here in Los Angeles that builds and invests in startups that are reimagining the future of work, and which for me is a critically important part. And I talk about this all the time, that the world's biggest problems, the world's biggest business opportunities, and there's so much opportunity on the future of work as a target. George grew his first company, AMI, and sold it to a strategic partner for a successful multi-million-dollar all-cash exit in 2018. Excellent timing. He then began investing in tech startups and venture funds, leading startup teams with fractional CXO roles. We'll talk about what does that mean, and launched several accelerator programs. George and his team help early stage founders, particularly in the future of work, B2B and SaaS space, with idea validation, really important. You want to go and spend all of your time developing your idea, then find out it's dead on arrival. Rapid market traction to achieve product market fit, again, fundamental to any entrepreneur. Fundraising, as well as building a founding team, partnerships, culture, all the things I want to talk about along the lines. George is an active member of Abundance 360. He's been with us for the last couple of years and is part of our 2021 program, and also Abundance Digital. So officially, George, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks, pal. Delighted to be here sharing some time with you. Yeah.
So let's begin with what is why are you doing this? What's motivating you, and in particular in this webinar, who are we speaking to? Tell our Abundance Digital members to self-identify. So why are you doing this, and who are we talking?
Yeah, great question, Peter. So I guess if we back up a little bit, I was growing AMI, but I knew something was off. AMI helped companies automate their processes. So we came from the automation, business process management space, and I'd been doing that for a while. And I just felt like there was more to life than just helping companies automate paper, digitize paper, automate processes, and for the most part, like kind of displacing jobs. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. So I was able to grow it, position it for a successful sale, and I still didn't know what I was going to do. And you were, part of this journey, you and Tony Robbins and other people that are good mentors of mine, helping me discover my MTP, which I clarified that, which is really all around inspiring transformation so people live the best version of themselves. I love the moment of the breakthrough. And I mean, I remember 20 years ago on Tony Robbins' old sites, I would be looking at the videos of the Drawing a blank, but the when he does the interventions, there you go, his intervention videos. And I like when I was down, I would get a breakthrough just watching him do interventions, and I've always loved that. And I just think that most of us, a lot of people, are just not living the best version of themselves for a variety of reasons. And so to achieve that breakthrough and have the highest in health and happiness and prosperity for mankind is my MTP in life. So I discovered that, and then I started my journey of how am I going to fulfill that? Do I want to start one company and have that, do that for the next 10 years? And really what I arrived at was, for a variety of reasons, which we could talk about, creating a venture fund, investing, sitting, belly to belly, side by side with founders, having the opportunity to work with 100 founders over the next 10 years, create some amazing companies that serve millions of customers, and helping them with real solutions that make a real difference in their lives was the way I could have the greatest impact on the world. So
I love that. And it really, we've talked about this within Abundance Digital, within A360, which is, we're living in a world where you can do anything, and you might as well connect with your massively transformative purpose, so that what you're doing, when you're doing something, it comes from the heart and it shows, and it's fun and it's meaningful, and you don't have that empty pit in your stomach. Because there's been a few times over my 23 companies where I did something for the money and it was kind of meaningless at the end of the day. So thank you for what you're doing in that regard. So and then within the Abundance Digital community, who are we speaking to? Who should be really carefully listening?
yeah, great question. So we're an early stage fund, usually at the ideation, early traction level. So we work with founders at different stages. So we have a few programs. We have our Aspiring Founders program, which a number of the Abundance Digital members are part of. Our first cohort, we launched that in July. It's going great. We have a number of people from Abundance Digital, EXO, SU, kind of those communities from your Peterverse. And so there's people that are at that very early stage that may not have an idea yet, may have their MTP, but not a fully fleshed out idea. They're an aspiring founder. Many of the people that are in that program are, it's not like they're not a founder. Some have been a founder, have had some good learning lessons. Some are coming from corporate, some are coming from different backgrounds. But back in COVID, I had a hypothesis. I said, what if we took, the unemployment numbers were climbing 10 million, 20 million, 40 million. I said, it seems like there would be a lot of people, not just the unemployed, but even the employed. COVID was the great reset. It seemed like there'd be a lot of people. Could we get 50 people to put them into, 10 teams of 5 and give them ideas, coaching, support, what we would do in our traditional accelerator program, but do it in a more controlled fashion to de-risk it and control the variables where, we can be guiding them to the outcome. And so that's that program, what we call the Aspiring Founders program. We're going to be finishing up the first cohort. We ended up with 30 people, 5 teams of 6. So we have like the product hacker, the tech hacker, the product designer, the sales rainmaker, the digital marketer, the utility player, and the data scientist. Those are the 6 roles. So each team is kind of solid, has it all covered. And the whole idea is to validate an idea within the 100 days. And by us, validating means usually one thing, which is getting to 10K of ARR, usually with just a prototype or a pre-sale to validate there's market demand, there's problem solution fit. So we could talk more about that. That's one group. And then another group would be a little bit further along. They have an idea, they have a team, they have more traction, and they want to take that to the next level. And we have kind of a couple programs for that as well, which I could share.
That's awesome. And I do want to share what you're doing across the board in these. Question. Can the motivation of being a founder and the idea of being a sort of like a pre-founder or an aspiring founder, when I think about it, for me, the realization is it's about taking control of your destiny. It's about having fun. It's about making a difference in the world. Instead of just having a job to put food on the table, it's really about like, what is connecting with my emotional journey. Is that the same for you? What else do you attribute, sort of like the idea of becoming a founder, and is it's sort of like the pre-founder, like it's like, you want to do this, but you're trying to find the thing that you want to start, right?
Right. So what we did was we of course we identified based on a number of things, the role, but then also what UN Sustainable Development Goal were they most passionate around. And so we put them into teams around that passion, that kind of that MTP focus to obviously to leverage what they want to work on as the most important thing in their life. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think it has to be kind of that burning desire of what you want to do, the problem in the world you want to see fixed. And then, I think that kind of our hypothesis around this is that entrepreneurship, as we know, this is not our hypothesis, this is well-known fact. Entrepreneurship solves a lot of society's problems, creates a lot of jobs. But our hypothesis is that there should be more founders. For every one founder there should be 5, but they don't have an easy platform to get in. So, what we're validating here is, can we provide an easy platform for people to get in, where it's okay if you don't have an idea, the money, co-founders, the knowledge, like what is entrepreneurship today? What are the best practices today? The lean startup was 10 years ago, and some of those have been invalidated, but people are still using the 10-year-old principles. But what is today, 2020 going into 2021, best practices? So, you come into the program, that's what we teach, no matter what program the founder is in. We teach the mindsets first, and then from mindsets, we roll into stage-based playbooks and like one-on-one and group coaching to help them get to the next level.
Love it. So, how many different levels are there in Untapped Ventures?
Sure. Okay, so we talked about aspiring founders. Kind of the next stage where somebody might come in is our Speed to Seed program, and that's intended for your solo founder. Either they're the technical solo founder that maybe has already hacked out an MVP or can program the AI algorithm, but can't take that all the way to the go-to-market. Or the flip side of it, right? The visionary founder that's got the idea, maybe has some sales and marketing strategy and experience, but needs help on the other side, developing the product, the design, the MVP. And so in that sense, we're a core studio that works with usually solo founder, sometimes there's 2, and we become an investing co-founder in that case. So we kind of take a co-founder seat and pour in money, time, resources, with the intention of, again, hitting our 2 milestones, that 10K of ARR problem solution fit, and then 100K of ARR customer MVP fit. And usually,
slow that down for you, George. What does that mean? That ARR and those numbers. So just slow that down for me.
Okay, sure. Sounds good. So my buddy Ash Maurya, the author of Running Lean, Scaling Lean, he created the Lean Canvas, and then out of that he created the Lean Stack and Continuous Innovation Framework. So we've taken his teachings, if you will, and layered in our studio and fun layers on top of that to build our proprietary methodology. Mm-hmm. And so what he's done a great job at, and then we've added to, is defining the stages in the startup journey. So the first stage is the problem solution fit stage, verifying that there's a problem for a customer worth solving. A lot of people get hung up there because they start with the solution in mind, and then they don't let go of that. We call that the innovator's bias, and that's probably the biggest reason why startups fail. People think
it is an old, there's so much cool things on the shelf that no one needs, and right. you focus on it and you build it, and it's like, and then you're trying to find the market. Who needs this? Who needs
right.
this?
Hammer searching for a nail. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's why the first stage gate in everything is getting to that 10K of ARR. Now, this is for most.
What is 10K? I mean, $10,000 worth, and ARR stands for what?
Annual recurring revenue. So yeah, thanks for helping me define that. So So what we want to do is we want to test the monetization strategy right up front. We want to do a lot of customer discovery, and we want to get to the point where we talk to enough what we call desperate early adopters. Not that the customer is desperate, but that they're desperate for this solution, to this problem. And so we want to get, if we can have a prototype or an MVP, then it's a $10,000 annual, ARR stands for annual recurring revenue. So
Sure.
we want to get that $10,000 of annual recurring revenue sales. But if we don't have a product yet, which is most of the time, we may just have a prototype, a deck, some sketches, a wireframe, a back of the napkin. A desperate early adopter will give a credit card just based on an idea. Like, where have you been all my life? I have this problem in my business, or I have this problem in my life. Yes, I'd love to be one of your early customers. Here, take my credit card. How soon will it be ready? Right? So that's what you want to hear in your discovery. A lot of people don't do discovery. They rush to building the product. And I think that there's been a bias to this rush to product for a variety of reasons that we could talk about. But part of it is a few of the mindsets we teach are kind of rolling that back and starting with the fact that, fall in love with the problem, not your solution.
Yeah. By the way, if I could just echo on that,
please do. I know you have a lot to share in this area as well, so I don't want to be the only one talking here.
No, but it is more about what you've built, which I'm grateful for. But in the period of exponential growth, when technology is changing all the time, if you fall in love with a specific tech solution, it may be outdated a year from now. If you are the world's expert in the problem space, if you understand the problem inherently, who has it, why it's a problem, why it's aspirin, not vitamins, which is a phrase I love to use. You want to deliver aspirin, right? Which a person, I have this problem, I need a solution, give me some aspirin, versus vitamins, which are nice to have. So if you know the problem, even as the technology shifts and changes, if you're the master of the problem, you'll be the master of that industry and that business. So the idea of testing and market validation, one of the greatest innovations in market validation that I've seen has been, platforms like Indiegogo and such, where you can put up something. Do you guys use those types of platforms?
Yeah, great question. So I'm familiar with those, the different crowdfunding platforms. I think a lot of times, traditionally those have tended to be hardware related. There's a physical item, and our focus is a little bit more on the SaaS B2B side of things. But I think if you have something that's more product oriented, certainly consumer goods, things like that, I think those are great platforms, and that's a great strategy for early validation. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, the term that you used that I used in the bio of creating a product market fit, if I had to like say, why have some of my companies or products failed, and or why I've seen others, that lack of a product market fit, of really understanding the problem, is one of the greatest reasons. Again, people fall in love with their idea and then they're trying to rationalize, well, who could use it, who could want it, and so forth. How do you actually, inside of your studio, help people who've come up with an idea find that product market fit?
Yeah, great question. So I think it would benefit for me to give the long version here.
What's your magic sauce here?
Yeah, so the magic sauce, so the methodology, this is the systematic methodology we use for wherever, whether it's one of our 3 programs or even a direct investment. Like sometimes, like if we get engineers that leave one of the unicorns and have a great company, they don't need to go through any acceleration or studio programs sometimes, but we'll still guide them and give them some best practices. But basically, as soon as you have your idea, what we want to do is step 1, just go ahead and just model it out, right? Like just model it out on a lean business canvas. And then the second thing is we have this thing called the traction roadmap. So, what we want to do is if it's venture scale, which is the world we play in, it's got to hit 10 million in 3 years. right? So that shows that it's on the right trajectory. So then we use the 10x thinking, which I know that obviously you're a big proponent of. So then in 2 years, if we go back from 3 years to one, if we divide by 10, it's got to hit a million. And a million in ARR is typically product market fit. That's when Series A investors would come in. So that's at the 2-year mark, and that would be product market fit. Then if we go back another year to the 1-year mark, that would be about 100K, again, using the 10X.
Yep.
And that would be your typical kind of an average seed stage is we're at about 100K of ARR and the numbers are looking good. We call that the MVP customer fit, as I was mentioning. And then if we go back to 90 days, in 90 days, we want that 100K, we want that in 90 days to be 10K of ARR. So like 10K in 90 days, 100K in a year, a million in 2 years, and 10 million in 3 years. It's never exactly going to go that way, but we want to model it out that way and then focus on getting to that 10K goal.
Yep.
So people get confused. A lot of reason that entrepreneurs fail or get stuck, get stressed out is because they get overwhelmed. There's just too much to do. And, we help narrow it down to just usually in this 2-week lean sprint, there's probably only 1, maybe 2, maximum 3 things you need to do to move the ball forward. And so I kind of jumped ahead, but that's then the third step of how to actually stay on track and achieve that.
Great. So let's talk about the next thing. At what stage do you take the entrepreneurs in your studio out to raise money? And what level of investments are you making from the fund and at what stage in the process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have our 3 programs that usually meet entrepreneurs in that first stage. Sometimes they think they're further along, but you ask how many customers you have or what's your ARR, and they end up kind of needing to adjust where things are at. But basically, so we have our 3 programs, and the idea is find the winners, make an initial investment. Usually that initial investment might be 50 to 100K, maybe 150K at that pre-seed round. Once they've validated problem solution fit, 10K of ARR, roughly speaking. And then the studio is going to use our resources and help as much as possible wherever they need help with things like, hacking out the MVP version 1.0. And we could talk about what MVP, different types of MVPs. People think that there's only one. Growth hacking, team building, recruiting, and getting ready so that we get to 100K of ARR. And at that point, we bring in our seed partners. They make an investment, we make a follow-on investment, we double down. And at that point, from our purposes, the kid goes off to college. So at that point, the future subsequent round VCs kind of take over.
So, in success, those who are investors in the $10 million fund, and I know you've got some of that committed, and you're open to additional commitments coming in Untapped Ventures. What kind of returns are you hoping to give people in the fund?
Sure. So we have that modeled out. I'd be happy to talk with people about it. The nice thing about the studio is that a studio starts off owning a greater percentage of the equity from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, if it's our internally born idea, then we would start with 100% and share that with co-founders. If it's an external co-founder that comes to us and we're taking, like it's just them and we're providing everything else, like build the product, do all the marketing, then maybe, it's going to be somewhere less than 50%, but, much higher than an accelerator would take, because an accelerator is just 90 days and then they're kind of out. But we're here until we reach that seed stage, fundraise, closed milestone. So we start off with higher equity for understandable reasons of time, resources, cost, risk. In those deals, we're going to have a higher liquidity than an average fund would. And then, like I said, we have this modeled out that over the 5 years, we're going to make 15 studio spinouts and 15 just direct investments. So if you kind of take the average of, how many will fail, how many will be singles, doubles, triples, home runs, and a couple grand slams here and there would be nice. Conservatively, we're thinking about a 4.1 return, but it could reach upwards of 6 to 8x for, but again, I'm not making any promises, and
Yeah,
we
no,
want to
of course.
abide by all rules.
So the next thing, a founder says, okay, I got the idea, I've got product market fit. I've been working on my MVP, and you need to build a team around that founder. In one sense, a founding team around the founder. How do you handle that? What's your advice for a team trying to build their founding team?
Right. So I mean, one of the benefits of the studio is we become that initially. So we don't have to worry about posting jobs, finding people. Somebody works out, somebody doesn't. We bring the instant team and we just plug in. We just start working and we start validating and getting traction. And that's one of the benefits of the studio, is the speed and hitting the ground running with the resources that we have. But at some point, in order to continue advancing, then there needs to be a good team in place. And so once the validation and traction is at the expected levels, then we transition to helping with recruiting and tapping our network and saying, hey, look, we got this great opportunity. It's growing 100% month over month. Like, we're looking for a full-time CTO. And so we use our network to start rounding out that team, so that when we take it to the seed VCs, who know that we're more or less going to be exiting at that point, essentially our job is done, but they want to see that there's a strong team in place, that there's continuity and succession. So usually it's tapping our network as opposed to like going and posting ads or anything like that. We have a strong network. I've been in multiple startup and entrepreneurial and founder groups for a long period of time. So I have kind of deep networks in different communities. Certainly Abundance Digital and A360 is one of those great communities where, I would see us tapping into for the next, for the foreseeable future, as we're not just looking for great founders, amazing founders to invest and co-build with, but as well as other key executives and investors and things of that nature.
Got it. So next question. At what stage do you start talking to a founder and a founding team, saying, listen, I want you to actively design your culture? It's one of the most underappreciated, one of the most critically important things of creating a culture in whatever way, shape, or form, but actively thinking that through. So do you actually provide guidance on building a culture?
Yeah, definitely do. So it starts right at the beginning when we talk about mindsets. And so we're kind of shaping how the company is going to be run. And if that's not a fit, and some people want to do things a little differently, that's okay. Then we may not be a fit for each other. But ideally, we're aligned from the beginning, and we're influencing some of that. Now, we're mainly influencing the culture around being data-driven, experimentation, learning, not failure, right? So we have our mindsets that you could translate into culture. And then from there, I have a lot of experience from my company, identifying your culture. What do you want to, what do you want it to be? What do you want people to say? Hey, XYZ is blank. And, a lot of that is through your mission, your purpose, your core values. And I think all of that is where once we've validated kind of that 10K of ARR, and we're working in that MVP customer fit stage to get to 100K, we're helping them define their culture, core values, and things like that. Before then, it's not the relevant. It's not the important thing to do. And you could also argue that right as a tail end of that is when you need to think about that.
Got it. All right. I'd like to take a second and talk about what are the stages of incubators, accelerators, studios. Because we hear a lot of these terms,
right?
And trying to understand what they mean and how they, connect with each other or butt up to each other. So, how do you think about that?
Sure. That's a great question, because I see people interchanging accelerator and incubator all the time. And then even when we talk about the studio, they call it, hey, George, your accelerator and all that. So here is the way I look at it. So you have, at the very beginning, you have your angels, friends and family. That's kind of obvious. They're usually investing in you. Then you have your incubator, which not everybody goes through one, but it's in before COVID, it used to be a space that you go to, and there's other startups. So you get some space and you get some support for a year, and usually you're paying either in a fee or an equity. Sometimes they're free. It's kind of a place to incubate. And then you have accelerators. So once you get to a certain point, the bar for getting into an accelerator has gone up and up, especially one of the best ones. So typically you need a well built out team, you need traction, you need like all these things. You can't be a solo founder. And an accelerator, like we talked about, is going to be a 90-day program. They're going to throw a bunch of mentors at you. They're going to give you, anywhere from 50 to 150,000. They're going to take anywhere from 5 to 10%. And that's the value they provide. Like 90 days, get you ready for a demo day. And so that when you, at the end of the 90 days, you could do the demo day and raise money. And I think there's value in that. And we have a part of that. So one of our 3 programs is our pre-seed accelerator. So a little bit ahead of the standard accelerator. And we do that. We work with corporates on that. We're working with a few government entities, a couple local here in, one local here in LA County, one in abroad, and running custom accelerator programs for corporates and governments. So we're doing that. But I think where studio is really different is it meets the founder right in the beginning and sits alongside and co-builds with them. I mean, if you're taking, if you're sharing the equity with this studio, and it's becoming a co-founder. So I don't think any other, and VCs are usually money, advice, hopefully good advice, and referrals or introductions. So I think I've summarized the main value adds of each of the components, and you could see why studios are significantly different, because they're there longer, usually a year to 2 years, and taking more skin in the game, putting more skin in the game, and actually responsible for doing the execution. None of the other arms are responsible for doing the execution.
Got it. And pre-COVID, was the studio a physical place?
Yes, I think a lot of studios were physical, and I think a lot of them are looking to go back to their physical offices. We started Untapped during COVID, and we're 100% remote forever. We have a team that's based in all over, Colorado, Boston, Armenia. And then we have our aspiring founders teams that are, based all over Canada, US, again, Armenia, Australia, and stuff like that. So the aspiring founders is our team of EIRs, entrepreneurs in residence, that, as I mentioned, help validate ideas and stay with the studio in some capacity to participate in ventures and help out. So I think that's one of our advantages is we just came right out of the gates wanting to be 100% distributed team. Yeah.
So George, if someone's interested in being part of Untapped Ventures and being a investor in LP, if you would, or if they're a founder interested in going through one of the programs that you have, what do? They reach out to you directly? Who should they reach out to?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, our site is untapped.studio. The ventures is untapped.ventures. And you can just email me. They can email me on there with any interest. I'm accessible. I'm available. I'm here to serve the community. So it's just george@untapped.ventures. So happy to chat with anybody that either has interest from a founder standpoint, an investor standpoint, from a corporate kind of partner standpoint. Happy to chat about any of that.
Awesome. And then it's interesting, your journey here started as Abundance Digital. Can you take a second and just chat about how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, I'll never forget the day. So I was, we had sold our house. We were temporarily at my in-laws' house with the newborn, our first son. We now have 3. So we were there, and I was on a run. And I remember I was like, oh, this book Bold, let me check out the audiobook. So I started on the run, and that first chapter just stopped me dead in my tracks and got my head spinning. I finished Bold within a couple of days, immediately joined Abundance Digital, just got right on. And then A360 came around in January, a few months later. On the first day, I emailed your team. I'm like, I'm upgrading. I need to be there in person. And then, of course, I've been in person the last few years, and super excited to be there this year. And I think that's a good segue for me to extend my gratefulness to you on my journey. I wouldn't be sharing all of what I've shared so far in our discussion if it wasn't for you. And the mentoring you've provided personally, as well as through kind of everything that you do, helping me define my MTP, helping me understand what's the latest and greatest in exponential technologies. And then with A360, the network, right, the community, and investing in a number of the companies, partnering, having investors from the A360 community. So yeah, I just want to extend my deep gratefulness to you, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, George. And let me just say to the Abundance Digital community here, one of the things that we really want to do is create a mechanism by which Abundance Digital members who have been part of the program and have gotten sort of the baseline there can step up and become part of Abundance 360. So if that's of interest to you, if you're interested in joining the full Abundance 360 program, go to the a360.com, a360.com website and fill out an application. There will be a place on the application where you can indicate that you are an Abundance Digital member, and that will give you some accelerated preference in getting into the program. So love the fact that that we're going to do that this year. Really make space for 10 or 20 Abundance Digital members to upgrade, if you would, to the full program.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about playing big. So if you're ready to play a bigger game, then, take that next level, do the upgrade. That's what I did. And I got, more than 10 times the return back from doing that.
Thank you. Before we go, one last subject, the future of work. Why did you choose that? What are your quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, you might say, okay, breakthroughs, transformation, that sounds like kind of like a mental health, like a B2C type play. But my lane 20 years was in the enterprise B2B space. And so I wanted to stay in my lane, but still fulfill my purpose. And then I was having challenges. Well, I came from this world, but I'm passionate about this world. And I couldn't reconcile the two until I had a breakthrough myself. I realized that really we spend most of our waking hours at work. And so the fact that I come from the kind of the workspace is actually an advantage for me as I'm looking to serve my MTP and thinking about what the next breed of solutions are, the next generation of solutions. So what we've defined is what we call the new future of work. So we define the old future of work as things that are still cool and that you and I are into, like automation and AI and robotics. Not that it's old and going away, but it's just more established and a lot of players. It's a bloody red ocean in some ways. Lots of founders, lots of investors, right? And so that's kind of the old, and I came from that world and I still love that world and we still invest in that. Like it's not off limits, but the new future of work to us, we have 5 categories that we look at. So, the first and foremost is, well, I don't know if it's first and foremost, but in no particular order, one is entrepreneurship, right? So we talked about that earlier. How do we have more and better founders? How do we reduce the 9 out of 10 startup failure rate? Of course, we're in that game, but also we want to support new product services companies that are helping with that mission. Second is well-being at work. Obviously, COVID changed a lot, and some of the old perks like beer and snacks and foosball table are no longer important. and we need like real new benefits that are going to make a difference there. So in that sense, tying back to A360, as I'm an investor in Life Guides, which is kind of the largest collection of A360 members, an innovative offering there with matching employees going through life challenges with life guides that have experienced that life challenge and come out successfully the other side. That's a great example of an innovative offering. On the other side, we made an investment in a company that has an AI life coach and uses reflective psychology to allow a kind of narrow use case, give it a problem. It just asks you a bunch of good questions that are not scripted, that help you arrive at a breakthrough. So that's that's well-being at work. Going back to entrepreneurship, we have we're working with one of the kind of the global brands in the startup world, and we're really excited to play an active role in that. I think that that's going to be huge. Can't say too much about that right now. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on all this as well, Peter. You know, I'm going to ask you what your updated perspectives are on the future of work. But the other areas real quick is emerging models of work. So the last few years was the gig economy, Upwork, Uber and stuff that changed. So what's going to be the new ways of work? You know, one of the staggering things for me is this concept of 9 to 5 is a new concept. Like it came in the industrialization era. Like before that generation, how we were, you would just be with your family. Most people were kind of entrepreneurs. They would either just build and serve themselves or sell to their community. And so this idea that we don't have to have what we think of today as a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So what are the next generation of tools in that sense? And then the one that I know that you're personally very passionate with as well, for the lack of a better term, we call it PPP. It's basically purpose discovery, you know, passion development and self-education or personal development. So like, how do you figure out your purpose, discover your passions, and go do that for work? If you're an accountant for 7 years and you kind of hate that, but like silly example, you like building like high-end model cars, well, there's a way you can make money on that on Etsy. Like, let's help you
I
discover
believe
that.
you can make a living in almost any area, and it's being creative. But if it's purpose driven, passion driven, you will find a way. And I think, George, it's worthy of another webinar for us to do in the digital community to talk about the future of work. Maybe we'll pull together a few individuals and do a deep dive. But I'm grateful for your time today. Those of you who are Abundance Digital members who are either in the, I really want to create a company, I'd love to found a company, or I have an idea, or I have a startup, please check out Untapped Ventures. Check out George and his work. And if you're interested in getting involved as someone who's investing in these kinds of startups and getting the fulfillment that you're getting, George, and moving things along, why don't you give your email and the websites one more time?
Sure. It's George at Untapped, UNTAPPED .ventures. George at Untapped Ventures. That's kind of the VC site. And then you could check out the studio site where we have a lot of the programs, which is untapped.studio.
Perfect. George, thank you. Grateful to have you with me today for this Abundance Digital webinar.
Same here, Peter. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope that I've paid it forward a little bit in helping the community learn a couple things and give them a couple more options on their journey.
Grateful. Thank you, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Peter.